Did you know that there are approximately 3,800 ghost towns in America? What exactly is a ghost town? Does it mean it's haunted? Well, maybe, but more likely not. A ghost town is a deserted town with few or no remaining residents. This happened a lot to boom towns during the gold rush. A town would sprout up quickly, families would move in as men were drawn by the prospect of striking it rich, and then the gold would run out and everyone would leave. The buildings remain, but the people are gone. Sometimes this is due to advancements in technology. As the automobile replaced the railroads, towns that were strategically placed along the rail line were no longer seeing any rail traffic. Other times, the town was deserted due to a natural disaster. In any case, these towns are creepy and they draw many tourists each year. On this list, we'll look at 10 eerie ghost towns that you can still visit today. So if you find yourself on a long, lonely, deserted highway, check out one of these. Number 10 is Rhyolite, Nevada. This is said to be one of the most photographed ghost towns in the US. Rhyolite, situated about 2 hours northwest of Las Vegas, was originally a mining town where fortune seekers came to mine quartz. The population of Rhyolite grew from a mining camp with a few tents in 1904 to a town with a population of 10,000 by 1907. The town once had a school, hotels, a hospital, stores, a jail, bank, and even a stock exchange. The town at one point was rigged with electricity, which was a novelty for a town in that era. Today you can still see the jail, which is largely intact, and the bank, which is just a shell of its former self. There's also a small cemetery and even art installations. It's worth checking out if you should find yourself in the middle of nowhere, Nevada, particularly if you are on your way to glance at Area 51, as Rhyolite isn't too far. Maybe this ghost town isn't haunted, but rather filled with things that are otherworldly. Number 9 is Terlingua, Texas. This ghost town is tucked away on the Mexican border and is 4 hours and 45 minutes from the nearest big town of El Paso. A visit to this ghost town will transport you back to the Wild West of cowboys and duels. This former mining town had a population of 3,000 people in 1903, but in 2023 only has around 100. Today you'll find a ghost town made up of decaying buildings, mine shafts, legends from times gone by, and the ruins of a once thriving mining town. Unfortunately, to visit Terlingua, you have to do it intentionally since it's not near any other city or town, but that doesn't mean it's not worth the trek. For those who do visit, there is an internationally acclaimed restaurant and fully operational saloon. Spend some time in the old jail or capture photos that are more reminiscent of an old movie set than an actual town. Number 8 is a really eerie addition to this list. This town takes us to the northeast, where ghost towns aren't as prevalent. This town was abandoned for all the wrong reasons. Centralia, Pennsylvania earns a spot on this list due to a fire, and not just any fire. It's a fire that's still burning to this day. In the 1980 census, the town had over 1,000 people, but in the 1990 census, that number dropped to 63. Today, that number is down to 4. So what happened? It all started on May 27, 1962. The coal mining town is above a labyrinth of tunnels filled with coal. The source of the fire that began on that fateful day in May is still hotly debated, but nonetheless, a fire ignited. Because the ground is full of coal, the fire can't be extinguished. The town's underground has literally been on fire for over 60 years. At its current rate, the fire is expected to burn for at least another 250 years. Tourists come to see the remnants of this toxic town. Residents tried to live there after the initial fire, but a series of sinkholes and smoke leaks eventually made the town uninhabitable, and by 1990, it became one of America's creepiest ghost towns. Number 7 is St. Elmo, Colorado. The town was founded in 1880, and like many ghost towns on this list, was once a thriving gold and silver mining community. It boasted a telegraph office, general store, town hall, 5 hotels, saloons, dancing halls, a newspaper office, and a schoolhouse. Around 2,000 people eventually moved there in its heyday as they sought out their little piece of prosperity. However, by the early 20th century, the mines had run dry and the town succumbed to the fate of so many others. According to their website, the townspeople were said to have rode the last train out of town and never came back. Today, you can meander through the community to see the well-preserved homes and storefronts and even go shopping in the general store. The town is about 2.5 hours west of Colorado City, nestled in the picturesque Rocky Mountains. The town is a photogenic walk down memory lane that will transport you to the past. Number 6 is Doodletown, New York. Don't be fooled by its comical name. If it were called Golden Doodletown, I'd likely be first in line. The name is actually derived from the Dutch word doodle, meaning dead valley. It is located in Stony Point, just a short hop north of New York City, though you'd never know you were so close to such a big city. Although Native Americans had lived in the area for centuries, it was first settled by Europeans in the late 1700s. Doodletown was home to Revolutionary War soldiers, miners, and farmers throughout the ages. In the late 1890s, Thomas Edison even once bought a defunct iron mine in Doodletown to test his proposed technique for an improved method of refining ore. Unfortunately, nothing came of his project. Today, the town is accessible by many hiking trails and is a popular destination for those who want to turn their hike into an adventure destination. By the 1960s, after 200 years, the town was abandoned and all that's left are the rubble and basic framework of old buildings. Number 5 takes us to the great north of Kinnicut, Alaska. Located in a remote corner of an already remote state, the Kinnicut ghost town is nearly a 7-hour drive from Anchorage. This abandoned copper mining camp was established in 1903 and is now a National Historic Landmark District. There were once businesses, shops, a train connection, and a lot of vibrant and bustling streets. However, in 1925, a geologist predicted that the area would soon be mined out. Then in 1938, the town was abruptly abandoned by its citizens, leaving most of their possessions behind. Since the middle of the 1950s, the place has been completely deserted, leaving behind a ghost town. Today, you can see the remains of an Eerie town which is relatively intact. It is nestled into the side of the mountain and creates an eerie atmosphere as it looks like it should be full of people. This is one of the more eerie and unique places on this list. Number 4 takes us all the way back to the East Coast to King Zog's Knollwood Estate, located on Long Island, New York. And no, this is not a made-up name derived from King Kong or something out of Middle-earth. King Zog was actually the king of Albania from 1928 to 1939. So what does an Albanian king have to do with a ghost town in New York? The reign of King Zog was cut short by the invasion of Italy in April of 1939. The royal family fled into exile, taking millions of dollars worth of gold from Albania's national bank. They first fled to London, Egypt, and France. But in the early 1950s, he set his eyes on the beautiful beaches of Long Island. He purchased a mansion called Knollwood Estate in 1951 and had ambitions for establishing an Albanian capital for himself and all those in exile. However, he never moved into the property. The mansion and grounds were repeatedly pillaged and looted in the early 50s because of rumors that King Zog had gold and jewels hidden there. In the mid-1950s, Zog sold the home at an immense loss. The structures on the site were demolished in 1959 out of safety concerns, and the property has been sealed off as a ruin ever since, but can still be visited today in Jericho, New York. Number 3 is Calico, California. Back to the old gold rush towns of the Wild West, Calico is the quintessential ghost town. Located in the Mojave Desert halfway between Los Angeles and Las Vegas, this remote ghost town was founded in 1881 as a silver mining town. In 1890, the town's heyday, the estimated population was 3,500, with nationals of China, England, Ireland, Greece, France, and the Netherlands, as well as Americans living there. Unfortunately for the town, in July of 1890, the Sherman Silver Purchase Act was passed and the price of silver was devalued. By 1898, the post office and school closed. By the turn of the century, Calico was nothing more than a ghost town. Visitors today can see the old storefronts and even a Chinese bathtub where you could pay 5 or 10 cents for a scrub. Calico looks like the set of an old western, and visitors can transport themselves back in time as they envision the once bustling town, now just a shell of its former self. Number 2 keeps us in California and is the town of Kelso, California, which is just 2 hours from Las Vegas in the Mojave Desert and only an hour and a half from the previous ghost town on this list. So if you are doing a ghost town tour, check out Calico and Kelso in one trip. The town started as a train depot in the 1920s, and the town saw its peak at 2,000 residents by the 1940s. The town boomed thanks to the discovery of gold and silver, but like so many towns on this list, the mines dried up and the town was abandoned. The remnants of Kelso are pretty well intact. The train depot is the centerpiece of the town and is perfectly preserved. An old outdoor jail cell is a highlight. There is essentially a cage out in the open that was once the Kelso jail. Imagine being stuck in that cell overnight and all day while the entire town walks by and watches you just sitting there in a cage. This ghost town is definitely worth the trip. And number 1 is also in California and definitely fits the category of eerie. Bombay Beach along the coast of the Salton Sea was once a popular getaway for beachgoers until the 1980s, when the increasing salinity of the Salton Sea destroyed the lake's ecosystem and drove businesses and private landowners out of the area. This left a ghost town on the shores of what was once a vacation spot. This dystopian, apocalyptic wasteland is a shell of its former self. Dead fish carcasses litter the shore, and a marooned boat sits on the beach covered in graffiti. A dilapidated billboard that reads "The Last Stop for the Bombay Beach Resort" and has a photo from the 1950s of women on water skis. It's one of the few relics that fully depict the town's former glory. The old Bombay Beach drive-in movie theater sign still stands in front of the big screen with a parking lot full of vintage cars. Not all is lost on this ghost town, though. The dystopian scape has become a hub of art installations reminiscent of nearby Slab City, where people wanting to live off the grid created an artist's paradise. This is one of the best on the list, despite it not being the oldest town to hit this top 10.